Good evening, everyone, and welcome into today's edition of the Royals Rundown podcast presented by Royals Review. I am Jacob Milham. Happy Thanksgiving from my end here, joined today by Jeremy Hokius Greco. Jeremy, I see you're still down in Georgia, and did you come out of your turkey coma yet?
The turkey coma, I think, has had to take a back seat to the cold, but maybe soon. I don't know. We'll see.
Maybe so. Unfortunately, it's not like the hot stove from a Royals perspective is going to take away that cold, which is unfortunate. But we'll talk about some things that could impact the Royals offseason plans, plus some more rumors linking a pitcher to the Boston Red Sox. We'll talk about that more. But of course, you have to go check out royalsreview.com. If you don't take away anything from the podcast, just take away that Royals Review is your best stop for all things Kansas City Royals related. I cannot express it enough. Still very, very active over there at the site. Jeremy, we're going to talk about some of your stuff that you're writing up for
Yes.
for Royals Review, right?
Yes.
So if you need it in a different medium, I completely understand that. I digest things a little bit differently, audio, written, things like that. But you are doing yourself a disservice if you don't check out royalsreview.com. All right, so a couple of AL moves from the past calendar week that we do need to talk about. I want to go ahead and get this out of the way because it's a bigger move, right? But it doesn't really affect the Royals. Ryan Helsley, former St. Louis Cardinals closer, got traded to the Mets, didn't perform very well there. He's heading to the Baltimore Orioles on a 2-year, $28 million deal. It sounds like the Orioles are going to keep him as a relief core member. I know there's a lot of smoke around teams trying to recruit him as a starter. That doesn't seem to be the case with Baltimore. He's going to go into that closer role, and I don't know how well the Orioles are going to be poised to be winning. But if you want to build a competitive bullpen, adding Helsley to the fold does do that. Jeremy, do you have any thoughts over this move?
They're certainly being aggressive. That's that's the trade for Taylor Ward and then adding Ryan Helsley to the back end of their bullpen. The money for Helsley is interesting to me. 2 years, 28 is not much more than the Royals paid for Estevez, but Helsley was one of the primer pieces of a bullpen that you could add this offseason.
Yeah.
But he does get an opt-out after that first year if everything goes to plan for him. So that adds to the value a little bit. And like you said, he wasn't great with the Mets necessarily, so that might have tanked his stock a little bit, might have had him going, let me get one good year with one team, and then I'll move on from there. Um, yeah, it doesn't it does the only thing I guess I could say it does for the Royals, it says, hey, maybe you could add that flamethrower that we've kind of been talking about. Maybe Alex Lang doesn't have to be the answer in the bullpen. Maybe he's just an answer in the bullpen, and you can go get another guy for 5 or 10 million, maybe even,
Yeah.
especially if you're willing to do an opt out for him, which there's no reason the Royals shouldn't. There's no reason to hang on to relievers. So by all means, offer them all the player opt outs.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. The other major pitching signing of the past week was San Diego Padres starter Dylan Cease going to the Toronto Blue Jays on a massive, massive deal. 70 years, $210 million. I don't know the full opt-outs. I don't know the full year-by-year breakdown, but I can tell you this is a major investment from the Toronto Blue Jays, who already had a top 5 payroll in 2025. Now they're doubling down a little bit more, adding more to the rotation, and one of the best rotations in the American League, at least on paper.
Yeah, the one thing that I thought, did I remember that correctly? And I remembered it more correctly than I thought I did.
Okay.
His ERA last year was 4.55.
Yeah.
The year before that was 3.47, pretty good. The year before that was 4.58. Now the year before that, his age 26 season with the White Sox, he had the 2.2 ERA. He was in the conversation for Cy Young Award, all
Yeah.
that good stuff. But it's been a few years since then, and he's had two kind of mediocre years, and he's still getting 30 million per on a long deal.
Yeah.
By the way, that is more years and more AAV than Seth Lugo.
Yeah, very very much so. Very much so. So this is one of those kind of market setters not only for this free agent deal, but it does kind of make the deals of the past calendar year, whether it be an extension or free agent edition, it does kind of put them in a different lens. I will say this about Dylan Cease explicitly though, because number one, my opinion on the San Diego Padres and the product that they put on the field and how they have built that together has changed numerous times, I would say, in different aspects. I don't know if because if you look at what Cease can control, he was good. He was one of the better starters in the National League. He had a 310 FIP in 2024. He had a 356 FIP in 2025. I firmly believe that the Padres put together a product that was more run run producing forward than it was run preventing forward. That is what I believe. I think Cease got hurt by that a little bit. And truthfully, I think that the Blue Jays looked at the strikeout numbers, the whiff rates, and things like that, and said, this is the guy that we want leading our staff for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, the thing that interests me is, yeah, just all that money that they
A lot
put
of money.
towards Cease. It makes it sound like the starting pitching market might be pretty intense out there.
Yeah.
You can have Dylan Cease and his I know what you were saying about the FIP and everything, but the you could have a guy with a 4.5 ERA last year who's 30, and you could pay him a lot of money,
Yeah.
or you could have a Kris Bubic for 1 year, very good. You can have a Noah Cameron for 5 more years, I think it is,
Yeah.
and 2.99899 ERA, just under 3,
Hmm.
for really cheap.
Exactly.
I would probably prefer either of those options to a Dylan Cease, but maybe I'm crazy. I don't know.
Well, no, and this is like what are the ramifications on the Royals? Well, I think that this looks at something you in your Kris Bubic's camp. You see this and you say, "Yeah, I'm not keen on signing like a middling extension if I want to stay in Kansas City. I think that the best thing for my financial future is going to be to test the open market, test that free agent market after his final year of team control following the 2026 season." From a Royals perspective, if you are to trade Bubic, well, that this increases the asking price for any of your starting pitching. I would say this is there are going to be payroll stop like there's going to be a hard stop for even guy teams like the Dodgers, teams like the Blue Jays. They are going to have a limit to what they can have in regards to payroll. You're going to have to round out your roster with some cost controlled guys, whether it be for 1 year, whether it be for 3 years or 5 years, etc. So, but if they really want that guy, well, then they're going to have to pony up capital in one way or another. So I like this from a Royals perspective, but again, that is assuming that the Royals will actually move Kris Bubic this offseason, which we've heard they're willing to do it. Anyone's on the table, but we've also heard that the Royals have not gotten blown away by that offer yet, by a offer, excuse me. And rightfully so. You don't have to trade Bubic at all costs. That's not where
No.
this team is at right now.
No, I you could have Bubic for next season, and he's your ace 2 probably. I know some people are like, "Well, he hasn't done it for a full season." You can miss me with that. He looked so good before he got hurt the first time, and then he looked so good again last year. He's for real if he's healthy. That's the big question. I'm willing to bet 1 year, 6.5, 7 million, whatever it is, on him being healthy. And then you do the qualifying offer. Maybe you get him to stick around for 1 more year. Maybe you get a high draft pick. Either way, Bubic is not a must. None of them are must trades for me if you can find another way to get those bats you need.
Yes, and I gotta pose this move to you on a scale of clowning, if you will. Like I think one to Ronald McDonald, or perhaps the Joker to Ronald McDonald, how funny this trade is. So it's easy to dunk on Bleacher Report. I will say
Yeah,
that.
that's true.
This is I think that they have good writers there. I think that trying to cover so many teams at once is a huge disadvantage for them, in my opinion. And they put out another blockbuster MLB trade proposals for guys like Skubal and Skeens and things like that. Well, the Royals actually got in on this one. No, they're not adding a starting pitcher, but this mocked trade is them acquiring Boston Red Sox outfielder Jarren Duran. And Jeremy, this proposed return, it did make me vocally chuckle in sending Bubic and catcher Carter Jensen back to the Boston Red Sox. Scale of the Joker to Ronald McDonald. How funny is that?
Why so serious? I guess is my answer to that, because the Royals, it might make sense. This is one of those trades that might make sense on baseball trade values, which is one of those things where it can get you in trouble.
Can.
Because Duran is obviously worth more than Bubic. Multiple years, a consistent producer, et cetera, et cetera. Carter Jensen is an unknown, so he's still not worth as much as he could be on the BTV. But the Royals are not in the position to be trading away bats. I don't care that the Red Sox, certainly not the one. Yes, they have depth at catching, but that depth is not there yet. It's a couple years away at least, I think, in Blake Mitchell. It's perhaps more than that in Ramon Ramirez. I don't know how long for, or if he's ever going to really turn into a big prospect. And of course, Salvador Perez is aging out. We don't want him starting 160 games anymore. So that leaves you in a position where you can't afford to trade Carter Jensen to add Jarren Duran. You're not improving enough. Certainly not if you're also trading one of your better starting pitchers for the upcoming season. It's a trade that again, probably makes sense on BTV. I'd have to plug it in to be sure, but I would bet that it does. But doesn't make any sense when you understand where the Royals are and what they need to accomplish.
Yeah, precisely. And I think that context is key, because we have talked about the catching depth, and that is something that teams around the league have called the Royals about. I think there's an Athletic report specifically naming Blake Mitchell as a guy who teams have targeted. The reality is Blake Mitchell is not ready for the opening day 2026 roster. Carter Jensen right now not only plays a position of value for the Royals, but he also is like the only young bat who is like ready to make his first opening day roster, if that makes sense. Jack Caglione's going to make his first opening day roster next year, but that I digress. That's just not the pairing to make right now. It is Bubic to Boston, fine. Hold on, I gotta go down a little bit of a rabbit hole here, because something with the Boston Red Sox fan base I cannot wrap my head around right now. And first off, the whole, Vinny and Cole Reagans for Jarren Duran talk. Thankfully, that crap is gone. That crap is I hope so, at least.
I
at
thought
least
I
from
saw
the
some of
bigger.
that. Well, I saw a proposed trade. They were talking. Somebody was saying, "Oh, Jarren Duran to the Royals is what we need to do," and somebody was like, "Well, make sure you get Vinny."
Yeah.
Cole Reagans has got to be a part. Maybe it wasn't both of them, but I definitely saw replies where people were like, "Well, you got to get those guys," and I'm just like, or not.
Mm-hmm. And now, after we'll talk about the Sonny Gray trade here in a second, a little bit more. But after that, this fan base is still very much, we need to be all in on starting pitching. Meanwhile, you look at their projections for next year as it stands right now, they have the best projected rotational ERA for 2026, according to Zips. They are looking very, very good from the pitching side of things. And I'm sorry, but I do believe at some point you have to ride with what you got. When you're looking at this fact, you have your number one prospect, likely, who made his debut last year, Peyton Tully, who might be pushed out of the rotation because you have so many other guys. You're at a point where either A, you need to trade away existing starting pitching to upgrade, or you just need to look for other ways to improve. Maybe that improvement is in the dugout. I don't know what to do from a Boston perspective, but I am getting a little frustrated from that aspect.
I think what I'm understanding is that the Red Sox or at least their fans. I can't promise what the team
I think
wants.
I think there's a big disconnect between the fans and the team
Yeah.
right now.
But what I see from the fans is that they want an ace. And so you mentioned the Sonny Gray trade. They traded away 2 pitching prospects to add Sonny Gray to their team. Great, not an ace. Very good pitcher, not an ace. So, I think if the Royals were to trade for their starting pitching to get Jarren Duran, it would have to be Cole Reagans at this point. I don't see how the Red Sox trade for starting pitching that isn't Cole Reagans. That said, I told you what I thought it would take to get Cole Reagans last time we talked about this, which was Roman Anthony and Christian Campbell. I think it takes both
Yeah.
of those guys. And you can't do that trade because you just signed them both to long-term extensions. You can't sign those guys to those deals and then immediately trade them. It's the same reason the Royals can't trade Seth Lugo or Michael Wacha right now. It's not because they don't have value. It's because you can't convince someone to sign a contract with you and then immediately get rid of them. It makes people not want to sign a contract with you because they're like, I thought I was signing to play with you, not to become a trade piece. So I just real quick worked up an alternate trade for Cole Reagans that would center
Okay.
Jarren Duran.
Okay.
And this is probably a fair-ish trade. I don't know if it's a
All
fair
right.
trade. I don't know if it's a trade that Red Sox fans would want to do. I don't know if it's a trade Royals fans would want to do, but it's something I just whipped up
Let's hear
real
it.
quick on BTV that might make sense. So the Royals would send Cole Reagans to the Red Sox. The
Okay.
Red Sox would send back Jarren Duran, Ryan Bayo, because like you're saying, they've already got pretty good starting rotation. You're going to be upgrading somewhere. The Royals need to get some kind of pitching back, probably.
Yeah.
So it's an upgrade. It's a swap of Cole Reagans, top shelf, injury prone for a guy who's not quite as injury prone, but has looked pretty good at times in Brian Bayo, and Garrett Whitlock, who is
Okay.
can be a very good reliever. He is under control through. Is he a free agent? Actually,
No,
he
he
could
he
be.
shouldn't be.
He I can't. He's got club options for 27 and 28. Excuse me.
Yeah. So
Um,
he's under team control for the next 3 seasons is the way that I'm looking at that.
yeah, and the original AAV was 4 years, 18.75. So 4.69, very reasonable
Yeah.
for a reliever who had a 22.9 K minus BB last year.
Yeah.
Looked pretty dang good. He had a kind of off 24, but he was hurt. And if you go back, he's always struck guys out and not really walked a ton.
Mhm.
Last year was his most he's walked in a full season was 3 per 9, but also the most he struck out in a full season, 11 and a half per 9.
Yeah. Yes,
So
and that was
that trade might make sense for the Royals, but then the Royals are giving up their ace. And sure, the Red Sox feel good because now they've got Cole Reagans. They didn't need Jarren Duran. They probably didn't need Garrett Whitlock that bad. Didn't need Brian Bayo if they've got Cole Reagans.
yeah.
But again, it's one of those trades that's fair. I think it makes more sense than Carter Jensen and Kris Bubic in a
I
lot
think
of
it
ways.
does.
But
Yeah. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
still don't know that I'd be happy about that deal as a Royals fan.
I don't think I would be happy about it. Right? I think that's an important disclaimer to have. I'm not going to be if no matter the deal really for Cole Reagans, truthfully, unless it's like a 1-for-1 Paul Skeens, like something that is absolutely not going to
Fernando
happen.
Tatis.
I
I've
I
heard
still
that the
don't
Padres want rid of him.
I still don't know if I'd even be happy about that because of the contract.
All right.
That's where I'm at in regards to that. But there are no plausible trades where I would be happy about Cole Reagans being shipped out. Now, according to this new report from the Boston Globe, maybe it's something we need to get a little bit more accustomed to talking about right now because I'm going off on a little side tangent here to answer your question, Jeremy. Alex Spear, he wrote the book Homegrown, really good writer. He's a columnist over there for the Boston Globe. Goodness gracious, I can't say Boston Globe. I kept on saying Boston Globe or Boston Globe. Maybe I need to say it like that. According to him, Kansas City is not hiding its willingness to deal a rotation member for an outfielder, and no one is quote unquote off limits. That is what he said verbatim. Now he quoted Jacob Milham saying a lot of teams are looking for starting pitching. So if we have what they may be interested in, They have an outfielder that would be of interest, and there's potentially the opportunity to make a deal. Specifically, Piccolo was asked about Cole Reagans, and Piccolo said that he wouldn't say Reagans is off limits. There would have to be a really big return for one starter in particular. So I think that that's maybe something you got to talk about.
Yeah, I will say that, like I said, this is a fair trade on baseball trade values. It's not an overpay, and I don't think the Royals are trading Reagans unless it's an overpay.
I agree. I agree with that.
So maybe instead of getting Bayo and Whitlock back, maybe they get Marcelo Meyer,
Maybe so.
Duran and Meyer.
Maybe
That could
so.
be interesting.
It could.
That would be a huge overpay, but
I would be insanely greedy in this, and I would ask for Jaron Duran and Peyton Tully. That is who I would ask for. I would ask for their number one pitching prospect, another southpaw. If
okay.
they don't believe that Tully is ready to cut it in their big league rotation, that's fine. I know he's ready for it. We've seen it. Apparently, they want an upgrade from him, and I'm sorry, Peyton Tully would fit right into the Royals rotation. Is it plausible? No, absolutely not. But that's an overpay. Okay, and you know what?
Duran and Tolley actually is less on BTV than Duran,
Really,
Bayo, and Whitlock.
I'm very surprised to hear that.
Yeah,
I really
Tolley is
am.
coming in with a surplus value of 32.7, whereas Bayo is at a 25.8.
Yeah. Okay.
The baseball trade value sees them as pretty.
O'Reilly. You need parts? O'Reilly Auto Parts has parts. Need them fast? We've got fast. No matter what you need, we have thousands of professional parts people doing their part to make sure you have it. Product availability. Just one part that makes O'Reilly stand apart. The professional parts people.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Similar in terms of
Okay.
excess value. I mean, spread out over 6 years each. I think that is.
Very
So
interesting. Okay.
yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't hate getting you want to give me Brian the Peyton Tolle, and then instead of Bayo in that deal, that certainly amps up that deal that I
Mm-hmm.
created to the point that it might be a little bit more interesting. But is he the ace that the Royals need? And if he is, Red Sox would be stupid to trade him.
Right. And this is a big what if. This is a big gamble on both teams' parts. And I think that if we had seen a fully healthy 2025 from Cole Reagans, I don't think that the Royals would even be entertaining this. I don't think that the Royals fans would even be open to talking about Cole Reagans being traded away. But we saw his struggles. We seen it with our own eyes. The expected numbers say that the game level stuff was way blown out of proportion of what he can control. I highly suggest that if you need a refresher on that, go check out his Baseball Savant page, go check out Fangraphs. What he could control was just great. But best ability is availability, and he wasn't available for most of the year. Like what this Royals team does not look as solid of a contender with Reagans on the shelf. I think you would say that for any team. So if you're worried about him getting back to that 2024 form where he's both healthy and elite, well, then now might be the time to move on, Jeremy.
Yeah, I don't know. I just look at those numbers from the 3 starts after he came back, Jacob.
They're
They
great.
are dazzling numbers.
They're awesome.
Just absolutely stunning, like Cy Young numbers. And it's 3 starts, it's 3 short starts, but that's who we've known Cole Reagans can be when he's healthy.
Yeah.
And I just think that and we talked last offseason about how people were talking about maybe trading Cole Reagans last offseason. And I pointed out, like, if you looked at his BTV then, it was it was greater than Juan Soto, in part because the deal Soto had signed and how much he was getting paid, but it was greater than Juan Soto. And the value is down now because of the injuries he had last year, but I think you don't trade him this year unless you get someone to pay for him like he had the value he had last year.
Yeah. So I would love to get thoughts from folks on social media in regards to this because I can go either way on a possible trade. or you could go check out RoyalsReview.com. I know, Jeremy, you're going to have a trade up or an article possibly in relation to Reagan's. But back to the Sonny Gray trade, because it does, I think this impacts the Royals specifically. So Gray has gone from the Cardinals. This is like the first move in what seems like a rebuild under Heim Bloom. Like, it seems like he's taking control and he's kind of taking things down to the studs, taking away payroll, things like that. I know from a Royals perspective, they were one of the teams in on Brendan Donovan. It was easier to list who wasn't in on Brendan Donovan than who is. But I think that shows you he can be had, despite a recent report saying that the Cardinals, like the Royals with Bubic, are planning on keeping Brendan Donovan unless they're blown away by a trade offer. I think you could still say that he could be had, or possibly another player. I know Alec Burleson is someone that Royals fans, have brought up. Like, there's a few Cardinals guys who can fit into Kansas City's plans. I just don't think that any of them are as valuable or would have the same impact as Brendan Donovan personally.
Yeah, probably not. As David Lesky has been fond of pointing out, Brendan Donovan, if you can get him first, he opens up so many opportunities for you because you solved second base or left field, and you could still solve whichever of them you want. But it does kind of feel like that's not going to be an early off-season deal. It's going to be one of those where if he gets moved, it's going to be later in the offseason when the Cardinals go, okay, I guess the offers aren't going to get any better than this.
Yeah. Yeah, probably so, which is, I don't know. The Cardinals way was the golden standard for so long, for so much of my baseball fandom, at least. And now to see them fully lean into a rebuild is going to be interesting to watch. All right. So trying to think of how to word this. I need to know the skinny on this New York Mets trade idea, man. I really do, because you brought it up with Lesky about adding Kodai Senga, and you tossed in another player that the Royals could target from the New York Mets. I need to know more about this.
Yeah, so this is a part of an article that I wrote up after we talked with David last week. Just because I was curious, what would that look like if the Royals were to try and get Senga and Beatty? And so I came up with the Mets and the Royals, Senga and Beatty, and the Royals send back Kris Bubic, Blake Mitchell, and Jonathan India. This is one of those things with BTV where you can kind of get in the weeds of, okay, this helps my team, but does this help the other team? Which is where I come back with that Duran for Carter Jensen and Kris Bubic trade.
Yeah.
Yeah, that helps the Red Sox, but does that do enough for the Royals, right? And I think there's probably some questions here about whether this does enough for the Mets. The Mets did seem to sour on Senga. They demoted, I realized as I was researching for this, they demoted him to the minor leagues in September of last year. Yeah. He's on his rookie contract. He's within option limits. He's getting paid more than that because of the way everything's structured, but he had options. So they optioned him to AAA because he was so ineffective.
Wow.
My read is that he had strained his hamstring covering first base. And when he faced the Royals last year was actually him coming off the IL from that injury.
Right,
and I don't think he was fully recovered from it, because he looked lights out before the injury and he looked completely unpitchable after that when he came back. So I think that that's probably just due to the injury, and he's probably fine. But, it kind of is what it is. So in this case, I think if the Mets have given up on Senga, and if they feel like they don't have room for Beatty, because now they have Marcus Semien and Jeff McNeil, who both allegedly claim second base as their home, and they've got the guy at third, Vientos. So where does Beatty play if he sticks around? You got to trade someone, and I think Beatty is the guy that the Royals would prefer, though maybe the Mets do Senga and McNeil instead of Beatty, and they think they can do that. And then I think that the Mets could use some catching depth. Francisco Alvarez is pretty good, but he's also hurt a lot, and they don't have any high-level catching prospects in their organization that I could find. So I figure that's where Blake Mitchell comes in. And then I kind of tossed in Jonathan India just as a salary balancer, because obviously they don't need another infielder. That's why they would be willing to trade Beatty in this scenario. But he's a guy that they could bring in to be on their bench because they don't care how much money they're spending, and maybe try and pinch hit in certain circumstances against left-handers, or they could just cut him, or they
Yeah.
could try. Alternately, the Royals could just trade India to somebody else for salary relief, or you could get the Mets to kind of kick in some cash and make it
Mhm.
even that way. So that was kind of just where that thought process went. I don't know if this is a truly good deal, but it's one that I think I would make, and this is me as a big Kris Bubic fan. I think Senga he's got 2 years of control, and he's got at least one more if he has an elbow injury.
Yeah.
So you got that going for you. I think Beatty played pretty good second base. I didn't even realize that till Lesky had mentioned that. Played a pretty good second base for the Mets last year. So I think you could put him there for the Royals and say, all right, that's good. And then you've solved one problem and you've kicked another problem down the road a bit by adding Senga. You've got an extra year of the pretty good pitcher that you can control versus, with Bubic, you probably only got him for that 1 year.
Yeah, probably so. So that is, I don't know, that it really depends on, I think, how other frontline moves go for the New York Mets. And especially if they invest more of the free agency capital into adding in the outfield. The Mets are one of those teams that they're going to be in on any guy until they're not. Like that's just how they work, I think.
Yeah.
So I'll keep an eye. What do you think? You gonna put that out this week?
Yeah, that should be going out the same day this podcast comes out, I guess.
Perfect. Excellent. So go check that out up on royalsreview.com for a little bit more information. While not a ton on the Royals front, so don't want to drag this along too long, but one thing that I needed to get out there into this talking area. Rule 5 draft coming up on December 10th. This is, there was a lot of talk about who the Royals didn't protect, who wasn't protected around the league, things like that. I'm putting out articles on like these are guys who would fit with the Royals and things like that. But in that research, if you want to call it that, like looking around the numbers for who is available in the Rule 5 draft, I kept on coming around to a name that is already in the Kansas City Royals organization and fulfills a position of need a little bit for the Royals. So I'm wondering if he breaks camp on the 40-man roster. I don't think he would be the opening day guy. But Luca Tresh, we've talked about him on this podcast before. He's a catcher, a little bit on the older side. I think he is entering his age 26 season, so he's not like, I don't know, he's not crazy overproducing for AAA. But I mean, this is a guy who I'm looking at his numbers. He ranked 6th in expected slugging. He ranked 6th in barrel rates, and these rankings are all for Rule 5 draft eligible guys. And he doesn't do. Trying to think how to word this, because he's not perfect, right? Like if he was a perfect catching prospect, we would have seen him already. We would have seen him at the major league level. But the reality is that the Royals, I think they need a third catcher. I really think they do. And if you're looking at, okay, Salvador Perez and Carter Jensen, they're already kind of going to be splitting things fairly evenly, maybe. Well, then you definitely need another option ready to go. And I think Luca Tresh can do that. I don't think he's going to get picked up in the Rule 5 draft. The ball doesn't like jump off his bat. He was in the 30th percentile amongst AAA batters for EV. He does a lot of things well. He barrels up the ball well. He has a good expected, or I would say good expected numbers. Not great, not phenomenal, but good. And mainly he plays catcher. He plays a good catcher. I would put him like a step below Freddie for me on the how well he plays catcher, which is still very good in my book, just not quite as elite as you might like. But again, this guy is he would be your third catcher in the organization. I think the Royals have shown being comfortable in the past of keeping 2 catchers on the 40-man roster and then adding that third guy once the need arose. I think of Luke Mailey last year. That's what they did with him. But I don't know. Tresh might be one of those guys that we see get picked up as a second catcher out there for another team. and I needed to get that out there because it's one of those things. Position players usually don't pan out in the Rule 5 draft. It's usually pitchers or guys who fulfill a specific role. I think Tresh can fill that specific role.
I do think the Royals have shown us, even under Piccolo and Quatrero, that they prefer a veteran third catcher. They had
That
Austin
is true.
Nola 2 years ago. They had Luke Maile last year. And while they were quote unquote in it in early September, they weren't playing Carter Jensen. They were playing Luke Maile when they
Yeah,
really should have been playing Carter Jensen.
it should have. Yeah,
I feel like the young catchers that the Royals have only ever get a shot if they have already used their veteran backup that they signed in spring training and he got hurt.
yeah,
So I have a hard time necessarily seeing that. I would be okay with it. I don't think your third catcher needs to be anything special. I just think he needs
yeah.
to be a catcher. And I
Correct.
think forking over more than the league minimum for a third catcher that you're not going to play unless you absolutely have to doesn't make a lot of sense. And, Luca Tresh has some familiarity with both the Royals pitchers and how the Royals as an organization like their catchers to do things, like their catchers to work with the pitchers. So, I hope he doesn't get grabbed and I hope that they make him the third catcher, but it is a little weird that they didn't just go ahead and put him on the 40-man roster already.
Right.
'Cause that was one of
Exactly.
the reasons I thought they might put him on ahead of the Rule 5 draft, not because I thought he would necessarily get picked, but because I you probably need him on there anyway, you might as well
Yeah.
be sure.
Right. And it's, I don't know, the Rule 5 draft and the methodology around the league is, I don't want to say it's a crapshoot, but it does go year by year. And I don't know if, I think we had Liam Hicks. He's a catcher. He got picked by the Marlins last year, but like he was the only catcher to get picked. Like this isn't a super common thing where teams go to the Rule 5 draft well to find their second or third guy to stash on the bench.
Yeah.
But just I had to put it out there. He kept popping up, and you're absolutely right. I think if the Royals were either A, wanted him to be the third catcher, or B, they were worried he would get picked in the Rule 5 draft, they would have added him to the 40-man roster before the protection date passed.
And you could argue, "Oh, the Royals had 40 guys on the roster," and I would say, "Yeah, they have 38 now. All they needed to do was outright MJ Melendez earlier."
Yep, that's all they needed to do. But we'll see what happens here. Hey, out of left field thing. Drew Waters doesn't have any minor league options left. Do you think he breaks the opening day roster? Yeah, I don't think so.
I think they're done.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think they gave him one last shot because they just were throwing spaghetti at the wall, and I think it didn't work, and I think that there's something about him they don't super care for, which is why he wasn't getting more opportunities anyway. I don't know what it is that they don't like, but, yeah, I think they're ready to move on from him and will as soon as they the one thing that Piccolo does and probably no MLB general manager does is get rid of guys before you have to.
Yeah, yeah,
So he'll be on the roster right up until they need a spot, and it wouldn't surprise me if he was the first one off once they hit 40 and they need one more guy.
I agree. I agree with that. So, all right, just wanted to ask. All right, Jeremy, do you have a review for today? I know you're feeling a little under the weather.
Yeah, just real quick, I finally got around to watching Sinners the over the weekend because I wasn't doing a lot else because I was sick, and man, what a technically good movie. Like, by that I don't mean, like, technically it was good, but what I mean is like, oh, the cinematography and the lighting and the acting, just just all the technical bits that go into making a movie, just really terrific stuff.
Yeah,
I think that it was not aimed at me as an audience member because whatever the point of that movie was went right over my head, but it was a feast for the senses in terms of just how well done everything was all the same.
yeah.
So, yeah, it's on, HBO Max, and you should absolutely check it out.
There you go. Okay. So let's see, I haven't watched a whole lot of new stuff lately, honestly. But one thing that Honey's been listening to a lot is the music from The Outsiders, the musical version of it.
Mhm.
It came out in 2023, and I remember I think vaguely reading about, hey, they're going to do this to The Outsiders, and I wasn't looking forward to, like, because you see The Outsiders the movie, read the book, and I just don't see that translating as a musical from the music I've listened to. Translated pretty well. I haven't seen the actual play, of course. They're touring around the country, a week here, a week there, and I hope to see them when they come to my area. But overall, the music is really good. It's a pretty good take on the story. If I know a lot of folks are in a musical mood after Wicked for Good just haven't come out. They're looking for that new thing. I would suggest going to give The Outsiders a listen, perhaps.
I think the thing a lot of people don't get about musicals is that a good musical, the songs come from, and this is something I learned when I was getting my musical theater degree, so excuse me for being extra nerdy for a second. I wanna use that
Please
degree,
do.
okay, Jacob?
Please use it on the baseball podcast.
One of the things that I took away from that experience was learning that in a musical, the songs should come when a character is feeling something so strongly, they can't help but sing.
Gotcha.
And so when a song comes from an emotional buildup like that, even in something where it might not feel like, why would you take something like this and make it a musical? If
Hmm.
if it's got strong emotions, you can build to the music and you can write the music for it. It doesn't have to be that show tune, stereotypical genre.
Yeah.
There's you can do so much with musicals, and it just really can be an emotional heightener. And it sounds like that's potentially what they've done with the Outsiders there.
I would agree. I would agree because I remember that as a kid reading the book, like it was a very emotional book in a setting that you would not think of being emotional. So I think they did a good job on that. So you can go check out their website. They got a full list of their tour stops. I'm looking at it right now, and see, it looks like they're going to be in St. Louis, if that's your speed. Chicago, maybe. It doesn't look. Oh, they're going to be in Oklahoma City, but no Kansas City. So that's unfortunate. But go check out the album at least. It's streaming. So, all right, folks, we're gonna go and get on out of here. It is a Sunday after Thanksgiving, and unfortunately, we are staring down the barrel of a work week. But thank you all for listening. We hope that your holidays are going smoothly. And if you want to make sure that you never miss another episode, you can follow or subscribe wherever you're listening at. We're going to be coming at you 2 times a week for the foreseeable future. Unless one of us is sick or otherwise detained. That's just good how it's going to be. So I'm Jacob Milham. There, Jeremy Greco. Thank you so much for joining us today. And until next time, go Royals.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.